coming out to there. Yeah. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to St. Michael's annual parochial church meeting, 14th of May 2023 at 11 o'clock approximately. But everyone's got tea and coffee and had a chance, so it's lovely to see you all here today. So, we're going to begin with the business part of our meeting, and then the final part of the meeting will be, we will receive some more information regarding the buildings that St. Michael's Church has care for, and there will be the opportunity for people to feed into the process in the way that this church building can be developed for the future. So we are going to begin, I believe, Michael, with the video. Is it next? Firstly, an opening prayer. Thank you. Let us pray. Jesus, may all that is you flow into us. May your body and blood be our food and drink. May your passion and death be our strength and life. Jesus, with you at our side, enough has been given. May the shelter we seek be the shadow of your cross. Let us not run from the love which you offer, but hold us safe from the forces of evil. On each of our dyings, shed your light and your love. Keep calling to us until the day comes when with your saints we will praise you forever. Amen. We're going to watch a video which is drawn from loads of different photographs that have appeared primarily on Facebook over the last year, and they remind us of all the different things that has taken place. It's not comprehensive, so if you're not featured, don't worry, but it's just pictures from Facebook, and it's a real opportunity to just have a reminder of the last year since the last APCM.
Thank you, Gary. Item 2 on our agenda is the minutes of the previous APCM. These were in the annual report, which was sent out via email, and I think there are also some hard copies at the back of the church. In relation to the minutes of the previous APCM, I take it that those can be received and approved unless anyone has any specific comments in relation to accuracy. Thank you. Those are taken as received and approved. Matters arising from the minutes. In particular, there were some matters arising from the minutes of the last APCM. And I'm quoting here specifically from paragraph 14. Peter Edmonds asked if it would be possible for people to begin to lead the prayers of intercession in the Sunday morning worship again. I think you're all aware that that is now happening. Then Peter Edmonds asked if the weekly notice sheet would be produced again. What has actually happened is we have now created the monthly Herald, which contains all the relevant notices in relation to church. Then Mark Edmonds presented a paper explaining how he believed that this was the right time to begin to assess the buildings that St Michael's Church were responsible for in light of the challenge of becoming carbon neutral, the financial costs of running the buildings, and ensuring our buildings are fit for purpose for the coming years. Hopefully the majority of you are aware that we now have a buildings group that has been formed, and that is precisely the building group's remit. And we'll hear more, I believe, from Mark later on in relation to the update on that. I now pass over to Gary for the church wardens.
Do we have the sheets?
Are we on the church wardens?
Yeah. Thank you.
Sorry.
So we come now to the first of our elections. Church wardens are elected every year for the coming year, and so we have had 2 nominations for church warden. Firstly, at this point, we will be saying thank you in a more proper way later, but Debbie Ty sends her apologies. She might be here soon. She's had to be at a baptism this morning. But Debbie has chosen not to stand for election as church warden for this coming year. So we will note our thanks and give a presentation in the weeks to come. And then also, we've had 2 nominations because there are 2 church warden places available. And before we can accept these nominations, we have to do something that is called overriding the church warden's measure. Church wardens can serve for 6 consecutive years and then have to take at least 1 year out before being nominated again. However, it is possible for the annual parochial church meeting to to override that for the coming year. Peter served 9 years as church warden. He still has some dark hair, which is encouraging. And on his little sticker from Flock Plus, which were given out as encouragement about the work of the Spirit, it says, "You are an amazing person and neighbour." So I can guess who that came from. Pete's not a neighbour next door, but he's a neighbour in the terms of Jesus and loving your neighbour. So I think we can all concur with that. And Peter's done an amazing job, and he's willing to stand for 1 more year. And that's very clear that it will be 1 more year. And therefore, if there is anybody who would like to be able to work alongside him and get an idea of what is involved, this is the best time to do that, because we will be looking for a new church warden in the next year. But we give thanks for Pete and Debbie's service as church wardens in this previous year. And I need to ask if there are, for all those in favour of us at this meeting overriding the church warden's measure for the coming year. Anybody against that? Any abstentions? Fantastic. So we can now move on to the nominations. And we have 2 nominations for church warden. Firstly, Pam Baxter, nominated by Pat Tennant and seconded by Margaret Smolden. Pam, if you would like to stand up so that people can see you. Most of you will know Pam, but this is Pam. And she's been worshipping here with her husband Noel for several years now, haven't you? So welcome. Pam has also had experience of being a church warden at a church that they used to attend in St. Chad's in Sutton Coldfield. And then Peter Swain has been nominated by Margaret Smolden and a squiggle. I can't read this. Do you know who that is? Mark Edmonds, sorry. Now this is another, if you wish to be nominated for church warden, or if there's someone else you would like to nominate, this is your opportunity to do so. Okay, so I would like to declare that both Pam Baxter and Peter Swain are duly elected as church wardens. And let's give Pete and Debbie and them a round of applause. We come on now to the presentation of the electoral roll. The electoral roll has been available at the back of church. And Simon, I wonder if you could nip down to the back and bring it down for me. So the electoral roll is, in one way, an indication of who considers themselves to be a member of St. Michael's Church. And in the last year, 15 people have come off the electoral roll when we went through it. 8 of those people, sadly because they had died during the year, and 7 people had either moved away or ceased to attend St. Michael's Church and didn't qualify in any other way for being on the electoral roll. So we had 15 less people on the electoral roll, and there were no additions. But if you do consider yourself to be a member of St. Michael's Church and you haven't completed the electoral roll form, you are able to do so again from after this meeting. So we have, I hoped this was going to tell me how many people are on the roll, but it doesn't, and I can't count it up, but we will send that in. So there are 15 less people on the electoral roll. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. We now go to the election of up to 9 members on the PCC. During the course of this year, in relation to the PCC, Vanessa Britton came off of the PCC earlier this year, and we want to give thanks to Vanessa for all her work on the PCC. So thank you very much. We've got 9 positions available on the PCC, and I have before me nominations of, if I can count quickly, 7. Thank you, Gary, for that. I have 7 nominations here. So before I read through the nominations, as per standard, I'm going to ask if anyone out in the audience today wants to put themselves forward and be proposed and second to go on the PCC, whose name isn't already on this form. That was fairly predictable. Right, I'm now going on to the actual sheet and reading through who's been nominated. The nominations are Elaine Riley, proposer Edwina Connell and seconder Gary Connell. Next name is Gary Connell, proposer Elaine Riley, seconder Trudy Walsh. Next name is Margaret Smolden, proposer Edwina Connell, seconder Trudy Walsh. Next is Michael David, proposer Margaret Smalden, seconder squiggle Mark Edmonds. Next name is Hilary Harrison, proposer Michael David, seconder Margaret Smalden. Next name is Matthew Lumley, proposer Gary Connell, seconder Gail Adam. Final name is Diana Boateng, proposer Judith Lennett, seconder Viv and Potiowski. Apologies there, Viv Potiowski. So those are the 7 names that we've got for nominations for the PCC. So I declare that all those people are duly elected to the PCC. So can we give a round of applause and thanks for all those people who've put their names forward. Next we go on to elections for the Deanery Synod. In relation to that, we have 4 vacancies for the Deanery Synod. People who came off of the Deanery Synod or whose terms expired over the last year were Hayley Breyer and Margaret Wilkinson. And so I think it's appropriate that we give thanks to Hayley for all her work on the Deanery Synod. Wasn't she? Hayley Breyer, term expired?
No, it was
right, sorry.
Gary, Debbie, and
Okay, well, you can tell we did not practice this in advance, so apologies here. The people who were on the Deanery Synod were Jan Peel, Margaret Smalden, Gary Connell, and Debbie Tye. So I think it's appropriate we give thanks for the 3 who are coming off of the Deanery Synod, Margaret Smalden, Gary Connell, and Debbie Tye. So thank you in the usual way. Although there are 4 places available, I only have 1 nomination for the Deanery Synod. In the usual way, I'll ask if anyone out there wishes to put their name forward and be proposed and seconded. Silence is predictable. So I go now to the form. Nominations for the Deanery Synod. The name I have nominated is Jan Peel, proposed by Squiggle Mark Edmonds and seconded by Kevin Dunnington. So I declare that Jan Peel is duly elected onto the Deanery Synod. We now go on to the appointment of the duty warden's sides people, and I believe there's a slide, Michael, for this. Do you want me to read through them all, Gary, or are you going to? Unrehearsed.
it's okay. On the screen you will see, I did predict that Pam might be church warden, you can see. This is to nominate, to receive church wardens, duty wardens and welcomers for the year to come. So we've got Peter Swain and Pam Baxter as church wardens. Duty wardens, I haven't done this really, but Pam and Pete, Margaret Smalden, Michael David and Hilary Harrison. And then welcomers, you can see a list of people there who have taken on the role of welcomer over the year. If anybody else would like to be a welcomer who is the first person that people meet at the door, at the entrance when people arrive, so first impressions really important, looking out for new visitors to the church and welcoming those who have been worshipping here for many years. It's a vital role and helping the church wardens in their duties. So if you would like to join that wonderful team of people, that all right, so we'll add Mark and Barbara because they definitely are people who've been welcomed. Have I done it twice? Oh gosh, I apologise, but there is another whole list of people. So it just means you do twice as many duties, of course. But I do apologise, but there's no one on that list that you won't have seen as in that welcoming role over the last week and many. But seriously, it's an important role, and if you could like to join that team, then please have a word with the church wardens, Peter Swain and Pam Baxter. That would be great. Thank you. So we receive those people in those particular roles. Thank you.
I think it's now over to Edwina to give us a presentation on the accounts. Thank you, Edwina.
So hopefully most people have had opportunity to look at the full set of accounts. I know they've been sent out electronically as well as hard copies at the back. If you haven't had any and you want some, do let me know. I'll make sure that you do get the full set of accounts. This morning, I'm just pulling out some of the key figures and some of the key trends that are of interest. We've got far more interesting things coming up in the agenda, so I will try and keep this rather short. There'll be an opportunity for questions at the end, so without further ado, we'll continue. The first slide is general fund. So that is the fund, that's money coming in, going out, that is unrestricted. We're not being told that it's for a specific purpose, and the PCC aren't designating it for such. I've left 2019 in because as long as it seems to me, that was the last full year we actually had in church prior to the pandemic, which in 20 and 21 disrupted quite a lot of what we did, normal activities. So I left that in just for a comparison. And I think what you can see is that we have seen a shrinkage on both income and expenditure from 2019 to 2022 of actually, it's around about 40,000, although some of you will be doing the calculations there and saying, well, that's about 30. And we had the lightning strike this year, which meant we had a claim off the insurance for about 8,000, and that expenditure went out again. So we are seeing a bit of a shrinkage over time there. You will also notice the bottom line figure is showing a surplus on the general fund for last year. Now, there's a number of reasons for that, and the main one is when we set the budget at the beginning of the year, we are putting in what we think will happen, and some of those things didn't actually play out. And when we set that budget, what we did last year is we used the common fund as the balancing figure. So we did actually reduce our common fund by 10,000. And as I say, some of the other things that played into that is that Ryan, the groundsman, resigned in the first quarter, so there was a saving on salaries. Liz reduced her hours as well. The energy didn't really kick in until the final quarter of some of those extra expenses, and we didn't spend as much on our properties last year as we would normally do, because obviously we knew we were doing the review, so we just held back on some of that. So that is why we're showing that surplus for last year. If we can move on to the designated and the restricted funds, you will see again, designated is where the PCC have earmarked funds for various reasons, and restricted is the money that's been given to us and we've been told by the donor that it's got to be used for a specific purpose. The designated is showing a slight surplus, and again, that is because of the not spending on the church building. The main thing that we anticipated spending on last year was the quinquennial report, quinquennial recommendations from the report that we'd had. We held back about £8,000 because we're waiting for specific quotes. The restricted funds, most of the expenditure there was to do with the lunch club and using restricted funds for the expenditure. The income, just for interest on the restricted funds, is mainly a grant that we had for energy from the diocese, Nancy Baker, and also some of the Epiphany monies coming in. If we can move on, please. Okay, so this is the voluntary giving, and this is just showing some of the trends that have happened over the year. And perhaps you can just, if you can just zoom in a bit on that for me, please, Michael. That'd be handy. So we can see that year on year, we are seeing a decrease of somewhere between 5,000 and 10,000. and that those figures include plate and also the contactless and gift aid. So that is a declining trend, and I have to say, given the actual ageing congregation that we have here, that will continue, which is obviously something that the PCC need to discuss. Can I just encourage anybody that hasn't signed up to the parish giving scheme and you are a regular attender here, please can I just use this as a bit of a plug that it's really important that we try and really eat into some of that decline. So if I can encourage you to either see me or do take a leaflet at the back of church, that would be really helpful. And again, so this is the common fund. So you can see that again, year on year, we have decreased our giving to the diocese. Now, the common fund is really important. Not only does it ensure that we get our full-time vicar here, but it also helps to contribute towards the bookkeeping service, payroll, property management, safeguarding, pastoral care. All of those things are things that we draw off the diocese to help us with. So what happened in 2022 is we've actually reached that break-even point where actually we are now just about paying our keep. So again, that's something that we can't go forward, reduce down again. Next one, please. So this is just giving you an idea of where our sources of income come from. So you can see a good half of it is voluntary. Again, I'll just go through that. That's the regular giving, the plate, gift aid and everything, the one-offs. Investment income is mainly the rental income on the church properties, Southam and Moorfield, but also it's investment income, dividends and interest. Activities for generating funds, that is the Christmas fair that we hold. And the church activities, that is things like hall and church hire, the parochial fees for funerals and weddings, and the insurance claim of 8,000 was in there as well. And then the groups, that is things like the lunch club, the belfry, the flower guild, all of that is incorporated in the groups. Expenditure, a really big proportion of our expenditure goes on church activities, and that does include the common fund that I've just spoken about. It's also things like building insurance, which is substantial, the utility bills, salaries, worship, music, health and safety, and the children's work. And then we've got a portion that is the hall, and that again is things like staffing, utilities, health and safety, repairs and maintenance. Churchyard costs, that's the contractors, the repairs, the maintenance. And the cost of generating funds is everything we have to spend to get that, things like the property management fees that we pay, and the accountant, bank charges, and the expenditure to get the income on the Christmas market. Balance sheet values. So this is if we sold up tomorrow, got rid of all the properties, cashed in our investments, this is the money that we would have. And you can see that in 2022, we're looking at 1,016,000, which is a decrease from the previous year, which was 1,045,000. So you may be thinking, well, why is that? You've just told me that actually we had a small surplus last year, so we'd expect that to be quite balanced and not much movement. So the reason that we're seeing that is, Michael, if you could just go to the next slide. We made an investment, a CCL investment for charities and specifically for religious organisations. It was at the time when our interest rates, we were getting 0.05% and not getting any interest. And longer term I want to say predictions, that's not a great word, but the view was that longer term we would get a better income from an investment fund. What you can see some big purple lines going up down the bar chart, and that is the initial investment that we made, which was £250,000 that went into that investment fund. We made that in 2021. September. By the end of December, you'll see a little orange bar there. That had increased by £7,000. That continued, and then in September last year, we decided to put an extra £75,000 across. But you can see the grey bar, which depicts that £75,000. What then happened is at the end of the year, we had a net loss on that. And that is because, as you remember, the latter half of the year, there was a major market crash on bonds and gilts when we had a budget put in, a quick budget, which the markets had a bit of a fear to when Liz Truss was our PM, and that took quite a slice off the value of the fund. Now, when I cut these slides in February for the PCC, that had significantly reduced and the market had picked up again. So you can see there was a £10,000 loss on the February position. And since February, that's more or less been up and down from that figure. So the value of the fund is now sitting about £8,000 to £10,000 less than we put in. But I have to say that obviously we've had more than that in dividends, which will balance that out. And longer term, the longer term view is still looking that we are looking at an increase in that fund. So that is why the balance sheet values have come down. Moving on, mission giving, you will know that we as a PCC agreed that 5%, this is quite a number of years ago, of our income, our voluntary income would go to mission giving, our charity, and there is just some information concerning where that went at the end of last year. So CMS, that is our partner Azaria Spencer, Christian Mission, £2,000. Malawi got 800, and Banners Gate Counselling Centre just over 400. Mission India 250. The Food Bank in Aston and Nechel's 250, and Open Doors, which is a charity for persecuted Christians, £300, which came to just about the £4,000. Thank you. The final couple of slides were just to give you some idea of some of the other activity we've been looking at during last year. So we rolled out the parish giving scheme, and thank you to those that did sign up. I do hope that you're finding it easy to do. We also employed contractors to maintain the churchyard. We switched property management company for Moorfield from Anderson's to Preferential, which was, I have to say, a success. I think we've had a lot less hassle, which has made life a bit easier for us. I've talked about the 75,000 that we put back onto CCLA investment, and we signed up to a new 3-year contract with Crown Gas. And Mark Williamson, who thankfully and very kindly looks after our utility bills, managed to get us a really good price in there. And although it has increased significantly, it could have been a lot worse, as the prices of gas significantly increased after we'd signed that early contract. So thank you, Mark, for sorting that out for us. We had an energy grant from Birmingham Diocese, as did all other parishes, to help with the spirring costs. We had 2,700 allocated to us. Now, it was given to us, but also with a request from the diocese that the PCCs prayerfully consider whether, as a parish, we needed all of that grant to offer warm spaces as obviously there are other parishes within the diocese that struggle to maybe meet their own bills and would struggle to offer those warm spaces within their own areas. And the PCC debated that and considered that given our own parish resources and knowing that there are other parishes out there that would struggle to be able to offer a warm space, we would return £1,000 to the diocese, which we did, and that was gratefully received, and a letter of thanks given to us for our generosity. We had the lightning strike, which you will recall, that caused a significant amount of damage. It was about £8,000 worth. We had to get a new photocopier, a lot of new equipment for the sound desk, as well as the electrics and some of the boiler work. And then the PCC agreed to put some provision, some money away for the Lime Tree Fund, because we have been drawing on that over the last few years. And we know that there's going to be a lot more expense to maintain the trees going forward. And also for the upkeep of properties, because we didn't spend last year when we should have done on some of the maintenance that needs to be carried out on the building. So that is some of the key activities that was undertaken last year. So moving on to the challenges for this year, the main challenges are to really look at the giving and gift aid. Increased costs and inflation will continue to be challenging, and how we manage that will continue to be challenging. There'll be more discussion in a while regarding the sale of Moorfield and the sale of the church hall, but obviously there's quite a financial element to how we manage that through, and the management of the building development costs. There is now an opportunity for you to ask any questions that you may have from that very speedy and short presentation, or indeed any of the figures that you may have seen in the accounts.
So I will come around with the handheld microphone if anybody has any questions for Edwina.
Thank you, Edwina, for a very clear presentation. I just wanted to ask about the Common Fund. You said that we reduced our contribution to the Common Fund. Isn't the level of the Common Fund set by the diocese? And, you know, we're sort of failing in our obligations if we reduce it. Could you just clarify that, please?
Yes, of course. So the Common Fund, the diocese will, at the beginning of the year, send out a letter basically setting out what the costs are of our parish, the costs of having a vicar, and they will recommend a minimum and a maximum amount that they would wish us to consider to pay on our Common Fund. Now, very reasonably, in 2020, they recognised in 21 that parishes were very much under the financial pressures, and the amount that they asked us to give did reduce down. And what I can say is that we've always met that amount. We haven't this year gone for the maximum amount, but neither have we gone for the minimum amount. We've benchmarked it somewhere in the middle. And we have actually for 2023 increased it by £3,000. So it's something that we take very seriously. It's something that we wouldn't want, as I said, to reduce down anymore now, because we are aware of our responsibilities and actually the really value for service that we get from the diocese.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
On one of the slides where you invested £250,000, at what point do you get your return on investment? Because there was some, you show a year where we made some money, and then because of the crash, we lost some money. But when do you actually get your investment back?
Okay, so there's two elements to that investment. There's income in the shape of dividends, but there's also capital growth of the fund, hopefully. So in terms of dividends, every quarter we get a dividend from the fund, and that tends to be, I think, from memory, and don't hold me to it, but it's something like £2,500 a quarter. So that money's coming in. When we look at capital growth of the fund itself, that is longer term, and when the PCC looked at that, they did understand that there are fluctuations in investment funds. They go up as well as down, so you need to take a bit of a longer view of that. So the recommendation was that you take at least a 5-year view on that fund. So if we'd cashed in on December, having made the investment in the October, we would have made a £7,000 profit. As it stands at the moment, we're probably about the same down on that. So you have to balance the two up, really, both the income and the investment fund to where we are now. So I don't know if that's answered your question, but the hope is, and we are watching this fund carefully in the finance committee that actually make the recommendations to the PC. We are reviewing that quite frequently, and we've recently had a big discussion about that fund and, you know, how we, you know, maintain it. Okay, any more questions? Thank you very much. The last part I'd really like to do then, I'd just like to say a real big thank you to Roz, Mark Edmonds, Mark Wilkinson, and indeed Gary as well, who are really supportive. It's a huge responsibility, actually, to manage these accounts. It is really appreciated for the support that they give to me, both in some of the decision making, some of the recommendations that we make, and also the day-to-day management of the accounts. So this is my opportunity to say a huge thank you to them for all of the work that they put in and the support that they give. Thank you.
Before we say a thank you, could you say about the external examiner?
Yes, of course. So over the certainly the last 3 or 4 years, we have had an independent examination by Data Developments that have gone through our accounts and checked them and validated them. And the recommendation is that we use them again to independent examine the 2023 accounts. And that is the proposal that I would like to make today, please.
So that's proposed by Edwina Connell, seconded by Mark Edmonds. All those in favour? Anybody against? Any abstentions? Thank you.
Thank you.
So, hang on, stay there, Edwina. So I would like at this point to firstly reiterate Edwina's thanks to the Finance Committee, but a massive thank you to Edwina for all the intricate, you know what I'm trying to say,
yeah.
and commitment to overseeing our church's finances. It's a highly demanding role, and she's helped St. Michael's Church navigate some troubled waters over the last few years with everything that's happened in the world and everything. So a massive thank you to Edwina and those people who support her. She always likes to say, if there's anything that comes up financially that you want to just clarify, she's always happy to do that or to find out the answer, and that is absolutely true. So a big round of applause for Edwina and everybody else.
And sorry, there's another thanks as well. I'd also like to thank other people here, people like David and Chris and David Yates and people, because when I ask for information from you, you're always really good at sending it in, so thank you to you as well.
Thank you. So having heard the accounts, we do also need to receive those accounts. So all in favour of receiving the accounts for 2022, please raise your hand. Anybody against that? Any abstentions? Thank you very much indeed. Gail Adams sends her apologies, but she has prepared a safeguarding report. She and I are St. Michael's safeguarding officers. And this is her report, which I will read for you. St. Michael's uses the parish dashboard approach for safeguarding, and by following all of the actions on the dashboard, we can be sure that we are keeping up to date and attending to all of the diocesan safeguarding requirements. This year, the PCC has adopted the new Responding to Concerns and Allegations policy. Due to COVID, our volunteers had not all received the right training on safeguarding for their role. Therefore, this year we have made a concerted effort to ensure that all appropriate volunteers have undertaken the required training. This is not yet complete, however, huge progress has been made. Our volunteers have been DBS checked as appropriate. Church members should note that the diocese has decided that renewal should be done every 3 years rather than every 5 years by the end of 2023. Gail Adams and Elaine Riley undertake the DBS checks for St. Michael's and will therefore be contacting those who need a renewal letter later in the year. The Church took part in Safeguarding Sunday on the 20th of November 2022, when the issue was central to the church service, with a number of people saying how helpful this had been. The PCC identified all the church activity where we needed to undertake checks on the safety of those who take part. More work is required on this over the coming months. So we receive Gail's safeguarding report. Thank you. We move on to the annual report. 2 documents have been made available. The one was the accounts, which also included all the key PCC decisions over the year. And then the annual report has been created by the people of this church, reporting on the activities of the particular groups that they are involved in. And so firstly, a big thank you to everybody who has contributed to the annual report. And on top of that, thank you to everybody who develops the life and the mission of this church in this parish in any way. It's the way that we thrive and flourish and grow and look for God and what God will do amongst us. One thing in addition to the report that I would like to mention is it clearly demonstrates that there's been a lot of change that we are going through as a church and as a country. It's just been the way over these last few years. And the report looks at some of the ways that we have endeavoured to respond. One of the changes that we have had at St. Michael's is a change of staff. Back in May last year, Liz Claybrook stepped down and retired from her role as parish administrator, and her role has been very ably picked up by Danielle Wollaston. And then in February, Michelle Johnson retired as verger, and the initial response has been that we have employed a cleaner on a contracted basis, Vicky, who is doing an excellent job. And also we have looked to find people who can volunteer to do the other aspects of the verger's role. And we are still looking at that, and that's working well in some ways and developing in others. We also recognise Simon's contribution to the life of the church as curate here, and I'd say Simon has been an excellent colleague over these last 2.5, coming up for 3 years. Simon will experience some change for himself over the coming year, new responsibility and potentially moving to serve in another parish. We watch this space. We don't want you to go, but we recognise that you might have to at some point. So a big thank you to you, Simon, for your support and work in the life of the church. Thank you to Hilary and all the work that she does as lay chair for the PCC. She keeps me grounded and on target, which is excellent. We have an interesting to and fro, don't we, sometimes, which is good, very interesting. But Hilary takes that role really seriously and is excellent as our lay chair for the PCC. I've already thanked Pete and Debbie as church wardens, but Debbie's here now, so thank you, Debbie. And again, just to reiterate, thank you to everybody who has supported the life of this church. This is an opportunity, because you would have read the annual report when it's been sent out or in the hard copy, if there's anything that you would like to ask that is included in the annual report. And if Simon, you could go on a wander if there's anybody.
Any questions? I think that's no.
Fine, thank you.
You could spell my name right at the end, but
Did I spell it incorrectly?
someone did. Don't worry, it's not important.
Well, it wasn't me.
Somewhere. Any questions? No, we'll take that as a no. Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you. Thanks, Simon. So we move on to the final part of our meeting, which will be a presentation on the buildings that St. Michael's Church has care for, followed by an opportunity for people to feed into the process for the development of St. Michael's Church building. So Mark, I would like to invite you as chair of the building working group to speak, please. From the lectern, yes.
Thank you, Chair, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to give you a brief report giving the current progress made by the building working group and the immediate plans for the future. I do not intend to backtrack on the original discussions for the reasons behind the plan, but will answer any queries at the end of my report. It hardly seems 12 months ago that my original suggestion was made at the APCM to review our buildings. Furthermore, the group has only been set up for about 6 months. The progress made is well beyond our wildest expectations, but as adverts say, past achievements are no guide to future performance. I will deal with our 4 properties in order. The first, Southam Drive. There are no plans currently to sell this. This is continuing to be let. There may be some works to bring it up to standard in the next year or so, but these are not expected to be consequential. The second, Moorfield Court. The current tenant has vacated the property, minor repairs have been undertaken, a valuation received which has been approved by the diocese, and the property is up for sale at $155,000 or above. Thirdly, it was formally decided by the PCC to sell the church hall as a result of an earlier report on the future of the hall. This was put on the market at £850,000 in April. The group did not know how quickly any offers will be made. The group had many discussions about the users of the hall, and in particular, the church users comprising the guide groups, luncheon club, and place of welcome. The church groups were advised that full support would be given to ensure that they could operate on both an interim and a final way without interruption, and this is still the intention if the groups want this help. There has been considerable interest to purchase the hall, but not by residential or commercial developers. The highest bid made at £1.1 million, compared with the 850 that I mentioned earlier, is by the Little Ripley Childcare Group, who appear very keen to purchase. The offer has been accepted by us and is now in the hands of the solicitors to complete the sale. The projected date for completion is the end of June, but it's possible that this might extend a couple of months might extend by a couple of weeks. We now have a major exercise of notifying the users and clearing the hall of all its stored materials. We plan to be ruthless and get much sent to the tip, but a balance will be stored at the church for future use. Lastly, the church itself. We are planning to use the funds raised to develop the church into a place of worship and a community hub for future use. This is very exciting and hopefully will be beneficial for the next generation and will be hopefully financially viable. Much time has been taken by the group to consider alternatives, and a detailed proposal was put to the PCC and the congregation some several months ago. These details have been displayed at the back wall for the last 6 weeks or so. These details also have been discussed with the diocese and in principle approved. The details have now been submitted formally to the diocese, together with a schedule of work and a statement of needs. A meeting is scheduled here with the diocese on the 2nd of June. Part of the proposal is to have a new car park in the churchyard to the east of the church. We have submitted a pre-planning application to the council and expect to have a response any day now. We have applied to remove 3 trees along the entrance walkway and have a guide quotation. We've also had a guide quotation for the preparation and completion of the car park. Ongoing issues include liaison with the Archdeacon and the removal of the gravestones. It is possible that this element of work might be dealt with as a separate contract to the work that we're planning within this church. On the main work within the church, we are interviewing this week a potential consultant to work with us and the architect to advise on heat pumps, possible underfloor heating, solar panels and insulation. We have some proposals separately from interested architects and more will be forthcoming. We would hope to be in a position to appoint an architect soon after the DAC preliminary approval at the beginning of June. We have a new communication committee working with us. They are fairly newly formed and have already shown full commitment to the work of our group. You will appreciate that much work has been done, and I'd like to offer my sincere thanks to the members of the group, the Communications Committee, Edwina and Reverend Gary, for their commitment and hard work. However, we are very well aware of what we have ahead of us, and we're all getting older, so there's no time to waste. Shortly, there will be an opportunity for you all to review our current proposals and make suggestions or recommendations for changes or modifications that you want to put forward for consideration. The group will review anything put forward, since this must be a scheme that the whole congregation fully support. It's going to cost a lot of money. Although there will be an opportunity to make later changes, the group are wanting to ensure that these are kept to a minimum after the architects are appointed to avoid claims for extra fees. However, before this, I ask if there are any questions to be put to me or the group on any matter that I've mentioned or not mentioned, and I'll try and respond.
My question is that you're interviewing a consultant this week. Can you tell us who are they? Who the consultant is?
The consultant for the heating and so. Sorry, the consultant for the heating you're talking about, for the heating and the one that we're meeting this week on Wednesday. The name of him is Roger Lowe. We had 3 suggestions put forward by the diocese. He is the only one that is local, and he's coming just for an exploratory meeting with us to see how far he's interested. But I'm hoping, based on his particulars and recommendations, that it's quite likely that we will be proposing that he will be appointed as our consultant for this element of work.
Okay, thank you, Mark. I'm going to explain how the next part of the meeting, which will be the final part of the meeting, this is the opportunity to meet with members of the Building Working Group, and they are going to facilitate smaller groups amongst us to provide the opportunity to look at the plans, but also to do some of what they call blue sky thinking or make suggestions. If you run, for example, a children's group or whatever, you might think, oh, it would be really good if we could have. There's no guarantee that they might all be able to be incorporated, but this is that chance for sort of brilliant ideas, crazy ideas. When I was doing this, I was saying, well, it would be nice to have a water feature in the church, and I realised we have one. It's called a font, so that's absolutely fine, that's covered. But this is really, earlier in the year we said there would be this opportunity, so this is our opportunity. The people facilitating will listen to these suggestions and ideas, and then they will be taken back to the Building Working Group to be absorbed into their thinking and considerations. So, the Building Working Group, so Mark, if you could sit here, and some people go and sit with Mark. Pat, if you could go to the back and people could go with you. Gary, if you could go over to the south aisle pews there. Who else have we got? Pete, if you could just go over there. Peter Edmonds, if you could go towards the back on this side, that would be great. And if I missed anybody, that's all of the Building Working Group that are here today. So go and join one of those groups. And obviously don't all go to just one, but spread yourselves around. We have not a great deal of time, so who's here and where are you going? Who are you going to go and sit with? Okay, everybody, off you go. Thank you. I can. You're all right, Pat. Yes, I'll see if there's any more. I realise I'm still switched on here. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, just to give you 1 more minute and then draw you back to the final part of our meeting. 1 more minute. Okay, gosh, okay. So I've just had a recommendation, you might need a bit of extra time, so another 5 minutes. Thank you. Okay, if you could all come back and sit down for the last part of our meeting. So I'd like to say thank you for all your ideas and contributions, and the Building Working Group will continue to reflect on all of those. I'm sure if you have a bright idea or a really good insight, then just feed that into the process along the way. And we're going to finish with Simon, who's going to pray for us.
So let us pray. O Lord our God, we thank you for inspiring and directing us over the past year. We can see your hand directing and inspiring us. We thank you for all that we have, for all that have contributed to the life of St. Michael's Boldmere. We pray for our church and the community in which we serve. Would you, Lord, calm our troubled and anxious minds, continue to inspire us by your Spirit to worship and serve you. As we have heard in the book of Joshua, have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. And everyone said, Amen.
Thank you very much, everybody, for all your contributions today. And that formally draws to close our annual parochial church meeting. Thank you for attending, and the rest of the day is fruitful and joyful. Thank you.